Hey guys, I'm so excited that you guys joined us today. My name is Bill Benson, and I'm the Independent Living Coordinator for the state of Alabama. I'm the program supervisor over Independent Living and our educational programs for our foster youth that emancipate from foster care. I'm excited to be with you guys today. Want to share a training with you. It's simply called Leaning into the Domino Effect, and I think we're all familiar with the game of playing dominoes. Whether you've actually played the game or not, more accurately, most of us are more familiar with setting those dominoes up, take an opportunity to line them up, whether we take 10 dominoes or 100 dominoes and line them up together. I think we've all had that opportunity to do that. If you haven't, well, you're missing out on a cool opportunity to just watch your work as you set things up, watch a cool work happen. And the principle is this: the choices in one area of our life lead to surprising results in other areas of life. How we connect one thing to the other is really important. And so as we look at the domino effect, we want to be able to kind of focus on that idea of how we can take one thing in the life of a young person and connect it to the next thing. The basis of the domino effect is just this. It's that chain reaction that takes place when we set things up that work in place. And so I think you guys understand the concept of what we're talking about. Isn't it great whether it's 100 dominoes or 1,000 dominoes that are linked up, and we watch this magical display as they each hit each other and fall down. And it should be the same way with our young people as we work with them, as we help them to develop a plan to emancipate from foster care or to transition into adulthood. Whatever it is that we're doing in that way, it's such a magical display to watch them move from where they were to that next stage in life. I know I have my children are from range in age from 19 to 25, and throughout their life, I've always enjoyed whatever stage they were in, but always look forward to that next stage and to see how what they learned in junior high school benefited them in high school, or what they learned in one area helped them in another. I can remember my boys playing sports when they were younger and learning some of those basic skills that they learned when they were 7 and 8, that then they were able to accomplish more things when they were older. I could distinctly remember my younger set of twins both played soccer when they were younger. And then one of them kind of moved away from soccer and wasn't there for a while. And it was during those years where you would specifically learn footwork. And so in high school, they both started playing again. But my son, who stayed in there, had a level of training in his footwork that his twin brother, who had stopped for years, didn't have. And to me, that was just a prime example of that domino effect of how one thing ties to the other, which ties to the other. And then as you move through it, will have a specific effect and reaction in our life. Again, when it comes to preparing and planning with our older youth, we need to lean heavily into that domino effect. We need to understand how what happens today will affect what happens tomorrow, even in a positive sense and in a positive way. The core idea is that as people commit to an idea or goal, even in a very small way, they are more likely to honor that commitment, because now they see it not just as an idea or goal, but they align it with their own self-image. They see it with who they are. So I'm not just going to nursing school, but I become a nurse. I'm not just going in a field of mechanics, but I am a mechanic. And so we start seeing those things in a different way, and that's part of that domino effect. That's how those things work and help with our kids. And so like with everything in life, there are rules to the domino effect. And a lot of it is based on what we're trying to create, whether we're trying to create the biggest effect, the world record effect, whether or not we're using 50 dominoes or 500,000 dominoes, whatever those steps are, whatever those things are, there are rules. And so those rules tie also to the things that we do with our young people. So the first rule is this: just start with something. Obviously knocking over one domino doesn't create that big wow factor that we're looking for. But when you're starting out with a young person and you're trying to help them to accomplish something, let me tell you, stacking one domino is a wow factor. Start with something that most motivates you. Start with a small behavior and do it consistently. I think sometimes we think that whole idea of go big or go home is all we offer. It's like we give them multiple tasks. Before I come back, I need you to get all 5 of these things done. Let me tell you, as a guy, if you give me 10 things to do, I don't do any of them. It just shuts me down. And so it's the same way with our young people sometimes. You got to give them one task. I just need you to do this one thing, and then hey, then we're going to do another. And again, starting with what motivates them. I hear young people or parents and caseworkers all the time that talk about young people that are not motivated. And you can't teach initiative, but what you can do is figure out what a kid is passionate about. When we can lock into what a kid is passionate about, then we can motivate them to do things. And if a kid is passionate to play video games every day, well, then let's work them in some type of IT. Let's get them connected with cybersecurity. Let's look at those things that they're passionate about, what motivates them, and help them in learning the skills and the things that they need in that effect. But they just got to start with something. And so a lot of this has to do with what's called the 2-minute rule. In a book called Atomic Habits, it talks about how to stop procrastination. And it talks about the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule is basically this. It states when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes for you to do it. You'll find that nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. So if you want to read a book, then before you go to bed every night, just read 1 page. If you want to exercise, then just exercise for 2 minutes. If you want to study for a class, open your notes, look at the first page, fold the laundry, take out 1 shirt and fold it up. If you want to run run 3 miles, well, start by tying your running shoes, put them on, walk outside, stretch. The idea is that to make your habits as easy as possible when you start. Anyone can meditate for 1 minute, read 1 page, put 1 item of clothing away. And as we just discussed, this is the powerful strategy, because when you start doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue to do the right thing. So what is that one thing? What is that one way that we can start? The actions, a new habit should not feel like a challenge. When we're asking a kid to do something, and every time we try to give them a goal or something to aim for, it shouldn't be so challenging where they feel overwhelmed. And a lot of times our young people feel overwhelmed just with getting out of bed. And so, a new habit shouldn't just feel like a challenge all the time. A new habit should be motivated, again, starting at small increments, small things. And so an action that can the actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. And so what we refer to is a gateway habit. What is that gateway habit that naturally leads you to be more productive? You can easily figure out a gateway habit that will lead you to desired outcome by basically mapping out your goals on a scale from very easy to very hard. Ask that young person, well, what is the easiest thing for you to do? What is the hardest thing for you? What sounds easy about this task? What sounds hard about this task? Running a marathon is very hard. Running a 5K is hard. Walking 10,000 steps in the course of a day is moderately hard. Walking 10 minutes is easy. Putting on your running shoes is very easy. Anybody can put on their running shoes. Your goal may be to run a marathon, but your gateway habit would be to just put your shoes on. And that's how you kind of follow that 2-minute rule. And so when we're challenging our young people and working with them and helping them on the things that they need to do, my challenge is start with something. Give them something that's simple, something that's easy, just 1 task. Hey, before I see you again, I just want you to do this 1 thing, and I want you to do it twice a week. I want you to do it every day. I want you to do it once a week, whatever it is. So let's start mapping those things out with that 2-minute rule in mind. What is easy for you to do, and then from there, let's help them to move to the next task. What is the next thing for them to do? As you look at this picture, you kind of see, that's 30 dominoes. Well, those 30 dominoes started again with just that 1 domino. Let's maintain momentum and immediately move them to the next task, so that they become motivated to finish. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I went hiking, and whew, and I only hiked about a mile, and but the last part of that was about a 50 was about 50 feet, and it was just a downward incline to this beautiful river, and we went out there, kind of had a good time, rested, and then we got ready to walk back up. And let me tell you, that first 50 feet was difficult. My legs were hurting, and in my mind, all I thought was, hey, let me just take one step at a time. I don't have to get all the way 50 feet. Let me just take one step and see how I feel after one step. Obviously, I'm not that out of shape, maybe, but it's just an easy concept sometimes for our young people, to maintain that next task. Let's do something small. Let's start somewhere, but then let's move to the next task. What's the next step? What's the next step for us to do? And to use those in a way where we can move on. So, you know, when I was younger, my mom would encourage me to eat my vegetables, which I didn't always enjoy. But what I learned is that I would eat my vegetables first, so I could get the hard stuff out of the way. I could get that done, and then I could enjoy the rest of the meal. I could enjoy those things that I really wanted to eat, opposed to constantly trying to, you know, stuff down the vegetables that I didn't want. And so, so let's start with something, and then let's move to the next task, and then let's help them to keep it manageable. When in doubt, let's break things down into smaller chunks. As you try a new habit, focus on them by keeping them small and manageable. What is that small thing that we can do? What is that manageable thing? You know, looking at this picture right here, if you asked me to build this, probably would not get started anytime soon. It looks a little complicated, but just think, if I just started with the blue dominoes and just did that line first, and then go to the yellow line, that becomes more manageable. And so our challenge is to keep it manageable. It's about progress sometimes, not results. Um, you know, I know sometimes we have this whole concept of go big or go home. And that's not always beneficial to our young people. That doesn't always help them to accomplish the things that they need to do, because they're overwhelmed. And so we want to make sure that we keep it manageable. We want to focus on the progress. How are they moving? Are they moving forward? Are they at least making an effort? Is there something going? What can we do to keep that momentum, and broke it down into smaller areas so that it's manageable, not just always focused on the results. Again, if I got to clean my room, let me start with one thing. Let me start with making my bed. If I've got to fold laundry, let me start with one shirt. Let me start with the pants, you know, whatever it is. I know when children are younger, a lot of times we want them to clean stuff up, and parents will say, hey, let's clean up all the blue toys. And so the kids run around and they skip all the other toys, but they just pick up the blue ones. And that's the same concept with our older youth, is what can we do to help them to keep those tasks manageable? Like with youth, it's all about preparation, not control. It's about the progress, not the results. And so I just want to kind of challenge you in those ideas. So as we look at this domino effect, as we kind of lean into it, I want to give you some thoughts on what I would call the domino outlook. You know, remember, this is their domino journey. It's not ours. This is their task. And a lot of times, as we're developing a plan with them, it becomes our plan. You know, there are definite times in my life where I've wanted different things for my kids that they did not want. And then I'd have one of my children who I felt like, oh yeah, this is the direction he's going to go, and then would never do that. And then my other sons, I would think, oh yeah, no, that's not the direction he's going to go. And then I find that that's what he enjoys. And so we can't always predict that kind of stuff. And so we've got to learn that same concept, that it's their experiences. You know, there's a lot of things in life that I've experienced, and if I could take all that and give it to them, then they, first of all, they'd probably be freaked out. But then it would help them, because then they go, oh yeah, this is what Dad experienced. But until you've done that, you know, we talk about putting your hand on a hot stove. You know, I can tell you that it's hot, and you can understand that concept, but it's a whole lot different when you put your hand on the hot stove yourself. Not that we're encouraging that, but it is their journey. And so we want to remember that when we look at this domino outlook of how we're looking at things. And they can learn from us, but it's their experience. Sometimes we inhibit them from figuring it out on their own, because our intentions are right, and we don't want them to be stuck. So we make decisions for them to help them to avoid obstacles. But every youth is different, and every young person is individualized to what they need to do and how they need to learn things. We have to let them, play their game. Have you ever played a card game with house rules? It's like Uno is one of those games. It's like everybody has their own concept of how to play Uno, where sometimes you just play the game the way you're supposed to, and then you have house rules where if I lay down a skip 4, then you can lay down a skip 4, and they can lay down a skip 4, and then I've even played where not only could I lay down one skip 4, but I could lay down all the skip 4s that I have, or all the skips that I have. But those are those house rules, and where those things may be frustrating, if you're not familiar with them. Everybody has those. Everybody has a way that they look at things, and everybody has a way of understanding this themselves. And so when we have an outlook and for our young people, we have to figure out that it's their game of dominoes, and we're trying to help them to stack them up in the way that it's supposed to go. And so a couple of things that I just want to kind of challenge you with when we think about that. Outlook one is this: it's up to them. They have to figure it out. We can't figure it out for them. I can tell you what to do, but if that's the only way that you move, if that's the only way that you function, then when I'm not there, do you keep doing it? And I think about that a lot with the young people that I work with. And I think if you're only doing it because I'm standing there telling you to do it, then it's not really you doing it. I want you to do that when I'm not there. I want you to be working on it when I'm not there. They have to have their own place to set up their dominoes. They have to understand that, our goal is to prepare them, not control them, because ultimately they're going to be out of our eyesight at some point. And so there's been times in life where I've set my boys up, my kids up to do things to see how they would respond when I'm there, because it gives me an idea of how they're going to respond when I'm not there. But I want to give them that opportunity, that it's up to them. It's their dominoes. Let me help them. My goal is to help them to set up their plan, to set up what they have and what they want to do. So in allowing them to play their, again, own game of dominoes, it's not just up to them, but help them to understand that life is flexible. And in that, we have to be flexible. Things are hardly ever set in stone. There are rules, there are things, but there is so much flexibility sometimes in the things that we can do. Because we are policy people, we tend to talk in absolutes. We can, we can't. We're liable, so we have to do those things. But let's just think about that. That's not the reality in life. Life is flexible. You show up to the store to buy something, it's not in stock. What do we do about that? We can complain and moan and be irritable, but again, it's just life. Life has to be flexible. And so we want to remember that when we're putting things together, that, hey, we may want them to go right and they decide to go left, and that's okay. Life is not a game of absolutes. And if you're willing to put forth the effort, understand that very little is actually set in stone, which on the positive sense means that there are a lot of options out there. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of things that can be done. We don't have to just do it one way. I think the thing that frustrates us in independent living the most is when we see that cookie cutter way of do things. Every kid has the same rule. Every kid has the same goals. Every kid, and that is just not reality. As a dad who had 2 sets of twins that don't have the same goals, that don't move in the same way, probably have understood more than most that there's no way to just do it all the same for everybody. I understand that we have rules. I understand that we have to work on stuff, but as we are allowing them to prepare their plan, as we're allowing them to work on things, we need to remember it's up to them. This is their plan. Life is flexible, and we need to allow them to do that. And then help them to understand that all the steps matter. Every step matters, not just the ones at the beginning and not just the ones at the end. Sometimes we get very focused on the introduction to stuff, and then we get very focused on the outcome. but we forget all the steps in the middle. We understand every single domino is important. Every single domino has to be lined up. Every single domino has to be in the right place. It's not just the first domino, and it's not just the last one that's important. In life, when we're trying to reach goals, every step needs to be planned out. Every step needs to do that. Not just, hey, I need to get a car, but what is the steps to get me to getting a car? You know, a lot of our young people, they know that end result. And a lot of times their goal is, I want to be out of foster care. I want to be away from DHR. Well, we've got to help them to see all the other steps that go in there. How do we get there? How do we achieve that? You know, a lot of times when I'm talking to young people in foster care, I'll say, look, my goal is to help you to be independent so that you're not reliant upon anybody else. And so I know that today you're reliant and today you feel stuck, but that's okay, because I'm going to get you to a point. If you'll trust me, let me work with you. Let's map out a realistic plan. We're going to get you to a point where you can manage yourself, and then you're not there anymore. But every step matters. And then the final outlook is this, is that you can learn. Even if you don't succeed at something, there is an opportunity to learn from that. And so even in failure, we can learn. You know, a lot of times we just see failure as failure. It's like, oh, well, you messed up. Well, that is a learning opportunity. That's a learning opportunity for me. That's a learning opportunity for you. That's a learning opportunity for our young people. There are things we try that just doesn't work. It doesn't work the way we want to. It doesn't work the way we thought it would, but that's okay. Hey, we tried, because it's up to you. It's your plan. Natural consequence is one of the best trainers in life for our young people. And so as we let them figure it out, understanding that things are flexible, every step matters, then hey, you know what can we learn? The dominoes might not fall the way that we want them to the first or 100th time, but we can learn from the mistakes and then do them differently. If at first you don't succeed, try again, and again. The more we learn, the better chance we have of getting things right. Again, natural consequence is a great trainer, a great teacher for our young people, and sometimes they learn more from those aspects of things than just what we tell them all the time. All right, so I know you guys are sitting here and you're going, hey, you know, that's great, but let me tell you, you just don't know some of the young people that I deal with. Well, guess what? Let's address some of the challenging behaviors that we deal with, because sometimes our young people are their own worst enemy. I know you guys have said that so many times about some of our youth, and you've talked about how they hinder their path. And you know, like in this picture right here, this little man is like holding the dominoes in place, and so here we are trying to make something magically happen. And so but we struggle. Why? Because they're holding it up. You know, sometimes as leaders, and I have to do this too, we have to own the fact that I may be under or unprepared to tackle some of the behaviors that I may face. And it's not my responsibility to control behaviors. It's really my responsibility to help young people to manage their own behaviors. And that is difficult. And I understand that ultimately we manage our own behaviors or somebody else, a boss at work, a life partner, law enforcement, somebody at some point will manage your behaviors for you. And so as we are working with our young people, we want them to understand that, hey, you've either got to manage this or somebody's going to manage it for you. But that's that idea. We don't have to take on that task. We don't have to take on that responsibility. You know, kind of brings us back to the outlooks that we discussed, that it's their responsibility. Natural consequences is important. Understand, remember, our young people, you know, they have learning disabilities, they have trauma that they deal with in results of abuse and neglect that they've dealt with, you know, and so some of these things are natural consequences. I mean, are natural per the environment that they've been in or the situation that they've been in. And so, you know, I've had conversations with parents over and over about the way some of the things that our foster kids do, because it maybe seems odd to a caseworker, or seem odd to a foster parent. But again, think about the things that they didn't have. You know, in my own life, I have 8 kids. 4 of them I've raised from birth, and then the other 4 God has blessed me with along the way. And I think the biggest challenge for me as a parent is not knowing some of the foundation that the four I haven't been with all my life had. I don't know what their base of their foundation was before they came into my life. And so I find that I'm constantly going back and rebuilding foundation, rebuilding some simple things. And here I have a concept or an idea of something, and then I realize, hey, that concept was never built. And again, that's not necessarily a good or bad parenting thing. That's just the way things are. People think differently. Our young people think differently. And so the effects of their life, whatever those dominoes were before they came to us, is definitely a part of that. And so, whether it's learning disabilities or the trauma that they deal with, all those things affect and become challenging with behavior. There was a research that was done, and according to research, approximately 25% of all school-age children identified with having disabilities were labeled as having behavioral problems. So those natural learning disabilities they had automatically had them categorized. And so their communication skills, social skills were limited. They had a limited ability to effectively even request what they needed or to express how they feel. And a lot of our young people are the same way. They don't know how, they don't have the skills to know how to communicate. They don't have the skills to know how to help us to know what they need or to help us know how they feel. And so because they struggle, it causes us to struggle. Sometimes our best strategies that we pose for them are really unrealistic or useless because it really doesn't connect to who they are. We have a plan and a scheme and a strategy, and hey, this is the way we're going to do it. But if it doesn't connect with them, if it's not their plan, if it's not according to where they are, if it's not their domino game, then a lot of times we're setting up stuff that never even connects to the dominoes that they have in life. And so, so one of the things that I want to just challenge you with when it comes to addressing these challenges and behaviors is let's set up long and short-term goals. Let's identify what those are. Even in this picture, you can see, I think we've all felt this way where you're setting stuff up and that young person, that teenager, has just thrown their hand out and stopped the process. It's their actions that cause that. Research that's been done on social and cognitive theory has demonstrated children are able to change their mental process by engaging in vigorous learning, which involves imitating or observing others, and by enacting learning. Social cognitive theory states that there are conditions that have to be present for social learning to occur. Those conditions include attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. And those are some things that become difficult. Getting a young person's attention so that they're actually pay attention to what we're saying, helping them to retain what we've said. We say things repetitively over and over and we feel like they don't hear us. Reproduction, not just letting you hear what I say, but having you reproduce what I say, doing it the way that I say. I know this may sound kind of funny in kind of a simplistic example, but when I got married not long ago, my wife and her kids, they had a different way of loading our dishwasher. I know that sounds silly, and so my thought is that the silverware goes up and the knives go down. I don't know what you do in your house, but that's just how I do mine. And so every time I'd go in there and the silverware would be down, or the knives would be up, that would be frustrating. And so what I had to do is I had to get their attention. Hey, look, I had to have a conversation. Hey, look, this is how, we want to try doing things. And then retention is making sure that they remember that, because otherwise, if you don't remember it, then, sometimes we fuss about things that young people really just don't remember because they don't pay attention to attention, retention, and then reproduction. Let me see that you can do that. And then the idea of motivation. Motivation is so difficult, so hard because, sometimes our young people are just not motivated by the things that we're motivated by. And it doesn't matter how much we push them, our motivation will not sink to them. And again, like we've talked about, it's that idea of what are they, what are they passionate about? What do they care about? What can I use in their passion level to be motivated? This means that, when we're working with them, that students have to be able to, our young people need to be able to pay attention. They need to recall things. And they need to model that expected behavior. And so when we're working with our young people, that's what we're looking for. in a minute, we'll talk a little bit more about our skills and those things that we're looking for. But one of the things we do is we want to talk about whether or not our kids are aware of the skills they need, whether or not they're learning the skills they need, and whether or not they're doing it. And it's that same thing. Are they even paying attention to the fact that the skill is there? Can they recall that? That's that awareness aspect of it. That idea of modeling it, the fact that they're learning it, the fact that I can see them doing it, to that expected behavior. Again, as we're dealing with those challenging behaviors, sometimes we just got to break it down to a simplistic, what is the long-term goal? What is the short-term goal? What can I help you to pay attention, to recall, to have that expected behavior? I read this statistic that said students with disabilities, that they did this research, and that the students in the school system with disabilities were about 5% of the total school age population, but they accounted for 50% of the behavioral incidents in school. And so only 5% of the population were affecting what was going on 50% of the time in negative stuff. And so, that's kind of I think that's how we feel too as workers, is that you may have 1 or 2 kids on your caseload that takes up most of your time, or that pushes you most of the time. And so it's like those kids take our attention much more than those that don't seem to have those behavioral issues. And we've got to find that balance for ourselves. When I talk about long and short-term goals, we've got to do that ourselves. We have to put a short-term goal in place for our kids that don't demand our attention. We have to put a long-term goal in place for those kids that don't demand our attention, for those kids that don't cause us to struggle, that don't cause us to want to scream when we get back in the car. When looking for solutions, you might be surprised sometimes how simple things can make a difference. Little things instead of just the big things. And again, going back to some of the other things that we've talked about in this training in regards to to starting with the one domino, keeping it going to the next step, and then keeping it manageable. One of the things that we find over and over, and I wanted to make sure that I put this on the slide, is our youth needs support. They need support. We've got to put supports in place. When we deal with difficult children, and again, not all of our difficult children have learning disabilities. Sometimes they're just difficult because of the stages in life they're in, or because they're just difficult, but they need that support. They need people in place. We are not always that support. We cannot always be that final support for them. We've got to put things in place beyond us. We've got to think in our mind, who is this kid going to reach out to 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I've shared the story of picking my stepson up at 3 a.m. in the morning because he was coming home from work at UPS and his tire blew. And so he had to have his car towed, and we had to go pick him up, and it's 3 a.m. and we're standing out there waiting for the tow truck and helping him out. And of course, my mind is totally distracted, because all I could think about is, who does our young people call at 3 a.m. in the morning when they need somebody to help them in a situation? Who do they call? They don't all call their caseworker. And for those that emancipate or leave care, who do they call when their family is not a support structure and they're not there? That is part of our task. We've got to put supports in place. You have children with behavioral issues, get them support. I have seen young people turn around just because they had one person in their life that cared, one person that they knew they would disappoint if they didn't act right, one person that they knew would be frustrated if things didn't change. And so I want to challenge you with that. Support with strong connections. That means that we have to communicate more often and more clearly. Sometimes we put supports in place and then we don't discuss with them. As a divorced parent, I learned that my kids would play me if I didn't call their mom. And there would be times where, I would just sit there and go, man, I don't want to call them, either because I was tired or maybe just because I didn't want to talk to somebody. But that is part of what we've got to do. We have to make those things happen. We have to be the adult and say, hey, you know what? I just want to reach out to you because I want to make sure we're on the same page. I just want to talk to you about what's going on in Joey's life, because I want to make sure that that me and you are connecting on the same level. They need that strong support. They need those strong connections. They need us to all be on the same page. That's why having ISPs with everybody at the table is so important. Having case plans with everybody at the table. I know that so many times it's easier just to sit down with me and the foster parent and the kid, but that is not the support structure that is needed. We have got to change the mentality that we have from, hey, I can handle this, to, hey, you know what? I need help. I need to know what my long and short-term goals are, and I need to know what supports to put in place, and I'm going to make sure that every support possible is at the table, so everybody has a role, everybody has a goal, and we can move them. And let me just say, our workers, you guys need training, training, training. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. I don't say that in the sense of, oh, you just need better training. What I'm saying is, I have been a student of life. And even in preparing this training, there are things that I have learned. Every time that I go somewhere, I'm trying to be like a sponge to understand, what can I learn better? What did I not understand? What's going on in the life of young people? Understanding the dynamics of their behavior, understanding their brain activity, just understanding their history. I am constantly learning myself, lifelong student. And that's really what I'm saying, is that we want you guys to be lifelong students. What can I learn? What can I do better? What can I do different? Needing that ongoing idea. So when we talk about dealing with difficult children, I know, some of this sounds really simplistic. What are those long-term goals? What are those short-term goals? What is that one domino I need to put in place? What can I do to give that youth support? Who is that one person that young person actually listens to or cares what they say? And how do I get them actively involved in their life? We eliminate supports on an ongoing basis that we should keep in place. Even when a previous foster parent can't house a kid, doesn't mean that they can't keep having contact with that kid. And a lot of times, many of our young people will go back and talk to those previous support structures that they can't ever live with. Because it's not just about placement, it's about the support, and hey, we're here to help you guys with the training aspect to help you with those things. So, so what does all this mean for our youth transitioning? What does that mean for their transition plan? What does that mean for them as they prepare? And so I just want to talk to you about a little just basic logistical stuff about their skills. What skills are we teaching them? What skills are we giving them? We teach skill-based concepts. We have an ILP framework, which is the tool that we use, which is over 100 skills that we utilize so that everybody's on the same page. I constantly still talk to providers and foster parents, and I'll say, hey, what skills are we teaching and what skills are we giving? And a lot of times they don't know what our framework is. They don't know what we're talking about. This is what I've learned about young people. When we don't have, and about myself too, when I don't have the right skill to deal with a situation, then my defense mechanisms kick in. And that's what happens with our young people. And so a lot of times when we talk about stuff, I'll say, well, what skills do they have to overcome that? What skills do they have to develop that? And even when I talk to young people, I say, look, you don't have the right skills to deal with that. They have birth parents that that act and treat them a certain way that they don't know how to deal with. They have toxic relationships around them that they don't know how to process. They have money in their hands, but don't know how to manage it in the right way. They have a desire to have a car, but they don't know how to get to that point. And a lot of that comes with those skills and developing that skill set. And so when we talk about our skills, we're talking about that idea of awareness, learning, doing. And so I put those up there with the definition because a lot of times I think we get a little confused as to what that really means. And, but whether or not a young person is even aware of a skill, aware that they need that skill, do they have the knowledge? Do they even think about that on a regular recognition, looking at some of those words and apprehension of what we're talking about? Do they grasp that they need these things? Do they grasp what they have going on in life? With skill development, we need to look at where they are with those levels, not just whether or not they have the skill, yes or no, but where are they at in that process? Are they learning that skill? Once they have an awareness of it, are they learning that skill? Are they actually taking the skill through experience, through study, being taught what that means, and applying it to their life, making it positive in what they do? to that point of doing it? Are they actually doing that? Are they able to do that? You know, to understand this whole concept, a lot of times we just have to be able to ask the right questions to young people. We have to know how to engage with them. We have to know how to see where they are. You know, an effective assessment of where young people are comes from effective engagement. You know, being able to engage with them in the right way. And, you know, I've read a lot of narrative where our young people were just not being engaged in the right way. And so, you know, one of the tools that we utilize for our young people and across the state of Alabama is our ILP framework. That framework discusses the well-being in community, personal growth skills. You know, a kid can't manage their own money if they can't manage their own, you know, self-growth, their self-esteem, emotional regulation, understanding what triggers them. You know, a lot of kids get mad, but they don't know why they're mad. They don't know what's causing them to do that. Healthy relationships, understanding how to develop that, how to eliminate toxic relationships, understanding that, hey, you know what? These people who are creating toxic relationships in your life, they may never change. They may never be different. Nothing may never, you know, may never move in a different direction for them. And so how do they manage with that? How do you manage with the fact that every time you hope somebody will do something different, they don't? You know, understanding education and employment. A lot of times we feel like that just because our young people have left high school that they've conquered education, and that's where they really start to struggle is, you know, when they get into college. And a lot of times we don't prepare them for college. We don't make sure they have the right skills, make sure they have the right skills with education, with preparing for interviews. And, you know, I think we've all had a young person from time to time that has showed up in an interview in slides and in shorts, because again, nobody ever said, hey, look, you know, you need to dress for success. You need to prepare for that. You know, daily living skills, just understanding how you should clean your bedroom, or clean your kitchen up, or, you know, that you don't leave food out for, you know, days on a time, or, you know, that food does go bad even if it's in the refrigerator. You know, understanding transportation and how to make that happen. Everybody has this idea of, hey, I'm just going to get a car and this car is going to do everything I want it to do. But, you know, the truth is there's other transportation options. And you know, until before I was able to get a car in my life, you know, I had friends that would transport me. I did a lot of walking when I was younger. And so just understanding that as we help our kids with those skills, that we need them focusing on it as well that through that, again, awareness of the skills, learning the skills, doing the skills, and then again, us taking the opportunity to help them and asking the right questions, to know what to say to them. Like I said before, you know, effective assessment of where a young person is comes from engaging in them, knowing who they are, knowing things about them. And a lot of times we assume things because of behavior. And behavior does not always define who a kid is, how they think, what their perception is, what's going on in their mind. You know, how they respond to things may speak to who they are, but their behavior does not always speak to they are. And, you know, understanding what dominoes can they handle. You know, are they ready for that next domino? Are they ready for that next thing to line up? Again, taking back to some of what we talked about with, you know, that 2-minute you know, 2-minute drill on what we're trying to do is, you know, what is very hard for them to what is very easy. What are some of the easier things for them to handle? And let's see how we can cultivate those things to move those things along. You know, we have a discussion guide that we make available that is designed to help to come up with those questions, to think about things that we don't normally think about, to think about questions that are not always on our mind. You know, sometimes excuse me, sometimes we ask questions just to gather information. You know, how are you doing? Are you getting along with everybody? How's school going? Basic questions to gather information, but that doesn't help us to engage. And so what our discussion guide does is it helps you to engage. It gives you questions so that we can better engage, so that we can build a better rapport. Because again, this is key to us working with our young people, to understanding if we want to know how to line the dominoes for them, then we need to know, again, what is their plan? What is it they have? How am I engaging with them in a way that will allow them to accomplish the stuff that they need to accomplish? And so I just want to encourage you, beyond asking those questions, to understand that we have to be able to do an appropriate assessment. How do we do the right assessment of our young people? How do we really process through what's going on with them and process through where they are in life? You know, assessments can be difficult when we don't feel like we have a basis for them. Assessments can be difficult when we don't truly understand a young person. And so, you know, in the state of Alabama, we have a real simplistic assessment tool. And it talks about all those skills, and it kind of, you know, walks through the different skills that are there. And helping us again break down, and through this screen, I think you guys can see a little bit of how all this kind of ties together. Everything that we've talked about up to this moment, where, you know, we talk about engaging with them, asking them questions, getting information from them, and then we sit down as a worker. This is not an assessment tool that we utilize with our kids. This is not an assessment tool that that our young people do, that we give them an incentive for. This is very specifically an assessment that the worker can do. And so we challenge our workers to sit down, utilizing the framework, utilizing those skills that we provided, to be able to sit down and say, hey, what level are they really at? Do they have that awareness? Are they learning? Are they doing that? A lot of that personal growth stuff. And then when it comes to personal growth, giving them one domino, one skill. What is that one skill I need you to work on? What is that one skill that we're going to talk about? You know, we may take months to address that one thing. We may take months to look at that one opportunity. But that's that process. That's leaning into that domino effect. That's leaning into that one thing that they need. Family supports and healthy relationships, understanding that our kids need a little bit more attention in being healthy. They need a little bit more attention in understanding what is toxic and what is not. You know, a lot of times they're just so happy to have someone that will pay them attention. They tolerate behaviors that they shouldn't. They allow people to treat them or to take advantage of them because, again, they don't have those skills. They don't have that development in place to be able to help them. Understanding healthy, having health education, understanding the risk prevention. You know, do our young people know how to go to the doctor on their own? Do our young people know how to go and manage their mental health? We have kids every day that leave care that have not managed their own mental health at all. And so what we've got to do is we've got to help them with that. Sometimes that smaller tool, and I ask, you know, young people this all the time, is, you know, are you managing your dental care? You know, have you taken the time to set up your own dental appointment? You know, when is your next dental appointment? And the reason I talk about that is because the dentist is the easiest thing. You know, and the truth is, if a kid never goes to the dentist, you know, they may get some cavities, they may have some stank breath. But ultimately, it's not going to be detrimental in regards to their normal health, or detrimental in regards to their mental health. And, you know, so many of our kids don't even know what kind of medication they're taking or why they're taking the medication. And when an 18, 19, 20-year-old does not know what they're taking and why they're taking it, those are problems. Those are things that we've got to help them with. Those are things that we've got to encourage them with. Those are things that they need to take ownership with. And that's part of that assessment, to understand where are they at? Are they in that awareness stage? Are they in that learning stage? Are they actually doing that? Just taking their meds is not a doing it when it comes to that health education aspect. They need to understand and be able to make an intelligent decision about the medications that they take. A lot of times we deal with young people that just don't want to take meds, and they just say, well, I don't want to take that. But that's because, again, they're not educated, because we've not given them the awareness or help them to learn that process. And so, and then again, when we move into those current priorities, those information, those are the things that should dictate what's really going on. Those are the goals. Those are the needs. You know, when we're spending money for a young person to do something, that should be mapped out in that current priority. And that's why we encourage for this assessment to be done on a regular basis, because the priority that a kid has today is not necessarily the priority that they're going to have 6 months from now. The priority that they have today is not necessarily going to be the same priority down the road. And so we want to make sure that we are assisting them with what is going on today. What is that domino today that we've got to work on? What is the next domino that we've got to put in place? What can we do to sustain and manage and get this going to prepare them in the appropriate way? And then all that brings us to that idea of just helping them to prepare for life transitions. And that involves a lot of stuff. Just looking at that slide, you can see all the different words and things that come into play when we talk about helping a young person to transition, when we're talking about helping them to reach that next stage in life. Some of those are easy terms. Some of them are difficult, turbulence, and close people. Triggers. What are some of those things that they're dealing with that is really giving them grief or giving them problems? And we need to be aware of those things. We've got to help them with that. And so, we have a tool that we use, a transition plan, and I just want to spend just a couple of minutes looking at this and talking about this. So as we help our young people to develop a plan, it's their plan. It's not our plan, it's their plan. We should guide them, we should help them, but this is their plan. This is their opportunity to say, hey, what dominoes am I setting up? What is the next step for me? What is that thing that I need to do? And that's what we should be helping them. And again, it starts with that personal growth, that social development. Where are you at in this process? Who can help you with this? That's where we start building those support structures that go beyond a caseworker. If everywhere that I develop a plan and I say, well, who can help you with this? And it's the caseworker, or it's someone who's just short-term in their life, that's not developing a long-term transition plan. And we should be reaching those out, and not just titles. It shouldn't just be, foster parent, but it should be a designated name. Who is that person? And if that person isn't designated, if we just say counselor, well, then we need to know who that counselor is. And our young people should be investing in who those counselors are so that they're a part of that, so that they can work on that. Identifying again through those skills, what do they need to know? What do they need to do? And then that moves us into, family support, healthy relationships. What are those supports that we can lean back on? What are those healthy relationships? Asking a young person, who do they go to when they have a problem? In my life, when things become real for me, I call my mom and I tell my mom. And when I tell my mom something that's going on, that's when it becomes real. And so who do our young people call when it becomes real? Who are those support structures? And making sure that those are healthy people in their life, not people that are going to constantly encourage them to do the wrong thing, not that's going to, not look out for what's in the best interest of them. And so again, helping them to cultivate that, to write those things out. Who are these people in your life? What is the next step? How is this person participating in your life? How are they helping you? What are they going to do with you? When we talk about, education, we want to be able to break those things down. What is the educational structure we're putting you in? What is your next step in school? What do you want to accomplish? Are we doing dual enrollment, or are we going to go to a 4-year school? Are we going to go to a 2-year school? What are those things? And to break those things down, to make sure that they understand, we've got to stop making decisions for them. We've got to stop putting the dominoes in place for them. We've got to let them set those dominoes up so that they can manage those things. One of the things that I talk about a lot when we talk about transition plan is a very simple concept that, the first time a young person does something, we should do it for them. Let them watch us do it. And then the second time, we should do it with them. Something that we do side by side, but I let them do it, kind of giving them that opportunity, and then we watch them as they do it. And so, and that concept is just simply that I want to model for them how to do it. I want to mentor them as they do it, and then I want to be the motivator for them as they do it on their own. Ultimately, we want to get to that point where we're on the sideline clapping for them and saying, hey guys, you can do it, you're awesome, you're wonderful, you're fantastic. That's the person that we want to be. And so, when we talk about education, when we talk about health, when we talk about money management, household needs, some of this stuff sounds very simplistic, but sometimes it's just a matter of saying, hey, let me stand here with you and let me show you how to make rice. And here, take these 2 cups of water, put it in there, throw a little salt in there. Yeah, you're doing a great job. Hey, you know what? Yeah, now throw a cup of rice in there, stir it up. We want to make sure that it doesn't spill over. And hey, yeah, if you take that wooden spoon and you put it on top, then as the water boils up, it'll disseminate. And so what we've done is that instead of me doing it for them, they've done it. And that's just one example. And so as we set them up with the domino effect, as we lean into the domino effect with them, and we set up that, we say, here, I want you to, where do you want to place this first domino? Where do you want this domino to be? Just anywhere, just put it anywhere on the table. All right, now where are we going to put the next one? How are we going to connect those together? How do we want to make sure that we're on the right track? Okay, so let's aim our dominoes the right way. Which direction are we going? Which direction is this leading? And then we want to go that direction to kind of aim and guide them in the right way. You know, I believe that you guys, just by the fact that you're listening to this training, that you've gotten this far in the training, that you really do desire to do what is best for a young person. I know that sometimes that is difficult. And so I just want to challenge you that we're here to help support you. We have a couple of other supports in place as we do these things. You know, again, looking at this picture, when I first saw this this picture of these dominoes, I thought, hey, this is going to be difficult. This would be a difficult task. But then as I started to think about the domino effect and how we start with one domino, and then we go to the next step, and then we just maintain that motivation, understanding the long and short-term goals that we use when we're dealing with difficult children, when we understand the tools that are available to us, when we look at our skills that are needed and what skills we can help them to develop, when we look at developing excuse me, an appropriate assessment, not even just the assessment, moving into a realistic, developed by them transition plan. Man, what a fabulous thing. And before we know, that one domino has turned into this magical domino track of multiple colors, multiple opportunities to help our young people go where they need to go. And so I want to challenge you again, lean into the domino effect, lean into what our young people are capable of and what we can help them to do. A couple of tools I want to leave you with. Want to challenge you guys to check out ilconnect.org. We have a lot of tools there, connects with social media, with our Instagram and Facebook page. But we want you guys to be on there. There's a resource page on there that talks about other ILP resources from across the state. And then our fosteringhopeal.org, our educational assistance that's provided through that. We want you guys to be a part of that. And then finally, that's my email address. If there's anything I can help you guys with, by all means, reach out to me. We are here to help you guys. We are here to help you to lean into the domino effect. We are here to help you to set those dominoes up in a way that we all get a magical result from our young people. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I sure do appreciate it. I hope you've learned a little bit. I know I've learned a little bit and to hear from you guys soon.